It was supposed to be a routine court session. Just another day, another case, another judge sitting behind the bench. But when the courtroom doors opened and a little girl walked in, holding a leash, everything changed. She didn't look up. She didn't speak. And the dog by her side, calm, focused, never left her. At first, everyone thought it was just a comfort animal. Something to help the girl stay calm. But then, something strange happened. The girl gave her dog a small, subtle signal, just 2 gentle taps. And in that moment, the dog's eyes locked onto someone sitting quietly across the room. The judge leaned forward. His expression shifted, from confusion, to realization, to absolute shock. He froze. The room fell silent. You could feel the tension crackling in the air like static. What did the dog just do? And what did that signal mean? No one expected the answer. But when the truth came out, it changed everything. This is not just a courtroom story. This is something else. The girl's name was never released to the public. Not to protect her identity, but because the real story was never about her name. It was about what she had survived, and how she chose to speak up. She had been through something no child ever should. That much was clear. And yet, she never said a word. Not to the police. Not to the counselors. Not even to her own family. But with her dog. She spoke in ways that only the 2 of them understood. Her parents had noticed it first. The way she would glance at the dog before answering simple questions. How she'd squeeze its paw when she got scared. How the dog, somehow, always knew what she meant. Therapists tried to reach her. Lawyers tried to prepare her for court. But the trauma had built walls no one could get through. Until someone had an idea. If she couldn't speak in front of strangers, maybe she didn't have to. Maybe the dog could speak for her. The idea seemed far-fetched. Risky. Unprecedented. But at this point, they were out of options. And so, a special request was made to the court, one that had never been asked before in this kind of case. The legal team approached the judge with a request that instantly raised eyebrows. They wanted the girl's therapy dog to be allowed in the courtroom, not just as a comfort animal, but as a key part of her testimony. At first, the judge was skeptical. This wasn't a family pet visitation. This was a courtroom, a place of order, procedure, evidence. But the team explained, this dog wasn't ordinary. The girl had developed a private system of communication. Simple signals. Quiet gestures. No loud accusations. No direct confrontation. Just trust, between a frightened child and the one living being she felt safe with. The judge paused. He had seen a lot in his years, liars, manipulators, broken people pretending to be brave. But this girl, she wasn't pretending. So after some debate, after hesitation from the other side, he said yes. The courtroom would allow the dog in. But no one, not even the judge himself, was prepared for what would happen next. The courtroom was quieter than usual that morning. There was no shouting, no banging gavels. Just silence. Heavy. Waiting. People glanced toward the doors, wondering how this could possibly work. Could a little girl, with nothing but a dog, really help move a case forward? And then, the doors opened. She walked in slowly, holding the leash with both hands, her tiny fingers wrapped tightly around it like a lifeline. She didn't look at the judge. She didn't look at the people in the room. Her eyes were locked on the floor. The dog padded beside her, calm, steady, almost like it understood this was no ordinary walk. She took her seat. The dog sat next to her, close enough for her to reach. For several minutes, nothing happened. The attorneys waited. The judge waited. The room seemed frozen in time. She was given space. Gentle questions. No pressure. But still, she said nothing. Not a word. Some people began shifting in their seats. Others looked away, already assuming the effort had failed. But then, she moved. Just a small motion. Barely noticeable. 2 gentle taps on the dog's paw. That was it. No one knew what it meant, not yet. But the dog understood immediately. The moment her fingers tapped the dog's paw, twice, softly, something shifted in the room. The dog didn't bark. It didn't whine. It simply lifted its head and stared. Not at the girl. Not at the judge. But at someone sitting quietly on the far side of the courtroom. A man. Middle-aged. Calm. Completely unremarkable. Until now. The dog's eyes didn't move. Locked in. Focused. The man stiffened slightly, but tried to play it off. He looked around, as if to say, "What's going on?" But the room had already noticed. The dog wasn't looking around randomly. It was fixed on him. Murmurs rippled across the courtroom. Attorneys leaned in. A juror whispered to another. The judge narrowed his eyes. He leaned forward slowly, almost instinctively. "Who is that?" he asked, voice low but sharp. No one answered. Everyone was watching the dog. And then, for the first time since she entered the room, the girl looked up. Her eyes met the judge's. And she nodded. Just once. That tiny movement said everything. The silence in the room. Now it wasn't just uncomfortable. It was electric. Something was happening, and no one knew what to do next. The judge didn't blink. He stared at the man the dog was still locked onto, the one who hadn't said a word, who had slipped under everyone's radar until now. 100 questions raced through the judge's mind, but only one stood out. Why is the dog staring at him? The judge slowly turned back to the girl. "Did he hurt you?" he asked softly. The girl didn't speak. But her hand gently tightened around the dog's leash, and again, she nodded. The judge's breath caught. No courtroom training prepares you for that. Not when the witness is silent. Not when the accusation is wordless, but unmistakable. A bailiff quietly stepped toward the man. He stood up, too quickly. Too defensive. "I didn't do anything," he said. "This is crazy. It's a dog. It doesn't mean anything." But no one was listening to him anymore. Everyone was watching the girl. And then, for the first time, she spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "He told me no one would believe me." Just 6 words. But in a courtroom filled with people trained to find truth. That was all they needed. The judge's face turned pale. His hand trembled as he reached for the gavel. He didn't slam it down. He just whispered, "Take him in." As the man was led away in handcuffs, the room remained stunned. Not a sound. Not even a cough. Just quiet, as the weight of what had just happened settled over everyone. The girl had trained her dog, or more accurately, taught it, to help her say the one thing she couldn't say herself. During months of therapy, she and the dog developed signals. 2 taps meant danger. 2 taps meant that's him. Her fear of speaking had been paralyzing. But with the dog by her side, she'd found a way to be heard, without ever opening her mouth. The dog had been trained to look directly at whoever the girl had identified during practice. And in court, it did exactly that. That man was someone no one had even considered. Not the lawyers. Not the therapists. He was quiet. Clean record. Knew the family. But the dog didn't guess. It knew. And for the first time, the girl felt like she wasn't alone. She didn't need to scream or cry or relive every painful moment. She just needed trust, in her own way, on her own terms. And that dog had delivered the truth with the kind of clarity no human could fake. The man was taken into custody that day. Investigators soon found more evidence, enough to make it clear the girl had been telling the truth in the only way she could. But in that courtroom, something more powerful had happened. A child, too traumatized to speak, had taken control of her voice, not with words, but with courage. And the dog had become the bridge between silence and justice. After the man was escorted out, the judge removed his glasses and sat back in silence. His hands were still shaking. He looked at the girl one more time, and this time, he smiled. Not out of relief, but out of respect. She had done something extraordinary. Her therapist sat beside her, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. The girl leaned down and hugged her dog, whispering something no one else could hear. And then, she smiled. Just a little. But for those who had seen her before, pale, frightened, withdrawn, it was everything. That dog didn't just help reveal the truth. It gave her the one thing she'd been missing for so long. Safety. Trust. And just maybe, peace. In a world that often demands loud voices to be heard. One little girl reminded us that sometimes, silence speaks the loudest. That courage doesn't always look like shouting in a courtroom. Sometimes, it looks like a quiet child, a trusted dog, and a moment no one will ever forget. It wasn't just a testimony. It wasn't just a case. It was a lesson, about connection, about healing, and about the quiet power of trust. That dog didn't wear a cape. But in the eyes of that little girl, he was a hero. And maybe, just maybe, that's all it takes to change everything. So the next time someone tells you that silence is weakness, remember her. Remember the signal. Remember the stare. Because justice doesn't always come with a shout. Sometimes, it arrives on 4 quiet paws, and a truth only the brave can tell.